Well, my course is not very much about ergonomics. There's a lot of information on ergonomics, and what ergonomics is using your equipment to fit you rather than trying to have to squeeze yourself into fitting the equipment. And there's a book that I've included, an ebook on healthy computing, and there's a lot of information around the internet. There's a little bit of disagreement among some of the things, but there's a lot of basics as well. I'm just going to show you a few things, and some of it is what I call MacGyver ergonomics, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But first thing is the keyboard. Now if you're playing a musical instrument, some of this applies as well. Now one thing I suggest is having someone videotape you, or if you have a video camera, put it on a tripod and video yourself, or if nothing else, the camera's on a cell phone, because a lot of people have those, and take a look at different ways that you're using your body as you work. One thing that's important is to have everything close to you so that your arms are straight down. You don't want to be reaching for your keyboard. You don't want to be out here playing your piano or whatever. You want everything close. It puts tremendous strain on your shoulders. You can get away with anything for a short term, but over a long period of time, you're causing pain. You gotta make sure your posture is good. You don't want to be stiff like a military person, but picture a string coming out of the top of your head to the ceiling, and picture yourself being lined up that way. And you don't always want to be that way, but you want to kind of come back to that position frequently. It's important for your back to be active. Being stuck in one position is really hard on the body, especially your back. But you'll notice it in your butt and everything else. It's hard on your legs because the muscles in your legs, in fact all your muscles, help with this moving of blood. It's not just the heart that moves the blood. The heart's of course the main thing, but the action of the muscles move lymph. The lymph system, which brings waste products out of the cells, has no pump. It relies on the action of the muscles, which is why legs swell up if they're not moved. You know, if you're sitting in an airplane for a long time, but also in an office. So even if you can't get up, which is always advisable to get up, move your feet up and down. That will help the movement of the muscles in the calves, which will help get that stuff going back into your system, because the pooling of the lymph really, you know, is not very good for you. Those waste products, just your muscles are just bathed in waste products, so you want to get that out of there. You know, it's one reason that your muscles feel tired, even though you haven't been going anywhere all day with those muscles. You know, the blood's been pooling on there. If you've been just standing in one spot all day like they do in a lot of occupations, or sitting. Anyway, as mentioned before, you want to have the back of your hand level with the back of your forearm. It's really important not to be flexing your hands or extending your hands as you use your keyboard. Unfortunately, most keyboards just have an adjustment in the back here so that your keyboard can go like this. But I've seen people with their keyboard up and they're standing and their hands are down like this. Very hard on the tendons going through the carpal tunnel area. Very hard on your forearm muscles, because your forearm muscles, as I mentioned many times, your forearm muscles move your wrists and forearms. You will notice that a lot of people type like this, with their hands flat on the table. And then when you're doing that, you're reaching like this for the keys. Again, stress, undue stress. What you want to do is be floating above your keyboard. Now, a lot of ergonomic information tells you to get a wrist rest. What is a wrist rest? A wrist rest is a padded stick. And a lot of people use the wrist rest wrong. And you might say, well, that's silly. How can you use a wrist rest wrong? And you think that a wrist rest is for resting your wrist on while you're typing. Not so. I don't have a wrist rest here. What I've got is a rolled up towel, rolled up hand towel. And a wrist rest is not for resting your wrist on while you're typing. Certainly it's better to have your hands up like this than down on the desk, but still, it's not for resting your wrist on while you're typing. You want your hands floating above your keyboard. You want to mentally be conscious of the back of your hand and what it's doing. What is a wrist rest for? A wrist rest is to rest your hands on when you're not typing. You can have them like this, which is a neutral position, because hands down is not a neutral position. You're using your pronator muscles, and as I mentioned, the pronator muscles are the ones that turn your hand down and they get really tight. So you can have your hands up or in the neutral position when you're not typing. And by having your hands down and resting, you're taking the pressure off your shoulders. This hand towel is kind of my MacGyver approach to ergonomics. MacGyver, if you don't remember, was this TV hero who was afraid of heights and didn't carry any weapons, but he did carry duct tape. And he was nonviolent. And he got himself out of impossible situations, primarily from people who were trying to kill him, by using duct tape and whatever other things he had to find. Very ingenious. So if someone calls you MacGyver, it's a compliment. Anyway, what else you can do with this? Well, you saw my forearm videos on how to take care of your forearms. There. You've got a padded surface to work on those when you're not working. And if you spill coffee, there you go. And if you find your keyboard's the wrong height for you or the wrong angle, this can even serve as a pinch. Or you can make things out of wood molding or those foam pieces, styrofoam, hard styrofoam that you get inside of computer packaging and that type of thing. Anyway, you just want to make sure the angle of the keyboard is good for you and that you're floating above the keyboard and that it's close to you. Gee, I repeat myself, don't I?